Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Out and About AF. I'm your host, Gabe, and this is a podcast where we share sobriety journeys from individuals from the LGBTQIA plus community and our allies. And for today's guest, we got connected through a friend, a mutual friend, and just hearing her story and everything that has come from her being in recovery. I'm very excited. Um, we have Amanda here with us today. Amanda, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, for sure. And Amanda lives in, I am horrible with the name.
In
Where
Oaxaca,
do
Mexico.
oh, there you go. See? And she's partnered with, uh, it's an agave spirit in a non-alcoholic Tomo no Tomo agave. Is that correct?
Absolutely, you got it.
Like even before this, I was like, okay, I want to make sure I say this right. So yeah. So we have a lot to talk about today, but I definitely want to get into your sobriety journey and then kind of like how did this company and business come from all of from recovery. So yeah, where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Toronto in Canada. I was a
Okay.
bartender in Toronto, and basically my sobriety journey began during pandemic. I think that's like a turning point for a lot of people at that time.
Hmm.
I was fired from all of my bar jobs. Mainly that was done as a way for me to get employee benefits or unemployment benefits. Unfortunately, I also was self-employed. I was also teaching cocktail classes at that time, and because I was self-employed, I couldn't get the unemployment benefits. So, unfortunately,
Oh,
I ended up with nothing because I had to cancel all of my cocktail classes. So, um, I wasn't able to take advantage of those benefits, and I had no work coming in. So, I was really stressed. Everyone was looking at me for what to do next. I was kind of a pioneer of what to do next all the time, and I really felt that pressure at that time. And so I thought, well, everyone's doing live Instagram things for free, like live DJ parties, live whatever. Instagram Live was just a huge thing during the pandemic. So I thought, okay, fine, I'll do a live cocktail class, I guess. And then I decided to make cocktail kits so that people can actually participate in the class because I assume not everyone has all the stuff that they need to participate. So I
yeah.
would drive around like a little Uber driver and deliver these little cocktail kits for everybody. And that kind of began a new type of business for me of delivering cocktail kits, doing cocktail classes online, and that ended up skyrocketing and being super successful. I'm sure you've gone to Zoom parties, corporate Zoom
Oh,
check-ins, all of that kind of stuff,
I
right?
had one of my birthdays on Zoom, and yeah,
Exactly.
it was like caftans and wigs, and even did
Yeah,
makeup,
exactly, right? So it ended up
and
getting
then we
really
got weird.
intense, right? So I think like, wow, we're all just talking to these little talking heads, and we had little online games and we had kits and we were doing all these things. And I thought, I really don't want to participate in making this normal to continue doing this over and over again. We're just at home, we're just drinking by ourselves. Nobody's really
Yeah.
interacting. And yeah, there was just a darkness to that really set me off. I think on top of it, I didn't have the same vibe with people coming into my bar, me being behind the bar and actively talking to people, getting involved in social cues. Like none of that was happening anymore. So I just I just lost all the fun of bartending and mixology and everything that I was doing. And so my business was doing really well, and I thought this would be the best time to celebrate. I'm really successful. Shouldn't that be it for me? And I was the most unhappy of my life at that time, I think. And I decided, well, anywhere is better than here. And
Right.
so if I'm not happy, it doesn't really matter if I've got all the money and all the success and all the work happening. It's not adding to my being, my life. And
Mhm.
so I took a one-way trip to Mexico. It was the only place that was open, and winged it. I had no place to stay. I had no idea where I was going. I had no friends. I had no family. I had no idea. I couldn't even speak the language, nothing. But for me, it was like anywhere is better than here. And this is the only place that's open. So let's go there.
Wow. That is
Yeah.
crazy. I mean, that sounds pretty badass, but that's kinda crazy.
Yeah,
Well,
I guess
I
I'm very extreme, yeah.
I mean, but I guess it kinda shows though, like, even when you're bartending, like, sometimes it's not even about the alcohol, it's about
Mhm.
that connection that you make with someone, and they say, because I was a bartender too, and they're like, you're serving drinks, but you're also people's therapist sometimes. But it's just like,
Yeah.
in reality, it's just like you're just making that connection. And I think a lot of people, I know for myself during the pandemic, we were drinking
Yeah.
a lot. Like every Friday, we had a liquor store right down the street because it was quote unquote essential business.
Exactly. Uh-huh.
Um, and we would make up a drink, one drink that we haven't had in forever. Like I think one time we did Cosmos. We made a pitcher of Cosmopolitans, and that was a rough night. But it was me, my partner, and my roommate at the time, and so we did that every Friday. And
Yeah.
we, like you said, we would get on. One of my coworkers, she was also a DJ, and she would do live. So we would just sit there, drink, and, like, after
Yeah.
a while, it kinda got, yeah, like you said, it just kinda got, like, played out because I was like,
Yeah.
because I never drank at home
And now you're
prior.
doing it all the time and it's normal and it's like you got nothing else to
Yeah,
do.
that
And
is
I just didn't like that that was the trend, that that was what we were moving to. And yeah, I enjoy drinking. I love drinking, but not the way that we were doing it. It just
yeah,
like changed the whole energy of it. So yeah, I thought like I just need to change of scenery. I just need to see something
yeah.
else and hopefully I can visualize what to do next.
And so were you drinking during this time, or when did you get sober?
So I was still drinking, but I was drinking a lot less due
Okay.
to just not being in the bar as much.
Mhm.
So even though I didn't like the vibe of what was happening online, at least I was escaping the regularity of drinking nonstop with annoying drunk people at the bar. So there were pros and cons at the end of the day. But I was drinking a lot less, and I started off in Tulum. I think that was like the place that everyone went to to escape
Mhm.
in Mexico. So I started off there and it was just party town in real life. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, this isn't any better than party time on Zoom. It's just the same thing, but it was like party time as if tomorrow was never going to come. So it was just like
Right.
super intense, super hedonistic, like the world's going to end. Let's like party hardcore. And so I was like, this is even more unhealthy. So I need to also get out of this. And so I took another trip to Mazunte, which is in the state of Oaxaca, where I'm at now, but it was on the
Mhm.
beach side. And there, they had a 10-day silent meditation retreat. Now, I'm not, a wellness person, not a yoga person, not a meditating person, any of this stuff. But I thought, I just saw the word retreat and I thought for some reason that was a good idea. I didn't think about
Okay.
silence or meditation. So I just joined it and I thought, you know what? A 10-day break from the world might not be so bad. And I walked in with zero intentions. And I think that was the best thing to do without having
Mhm.
practiced it or even reading the itinerary or anything. I was just like, just get me out of here. Just give me somewhere else to go. And I guess where I was going was within, so that's a new space. It was a new space for me at that time. And at the very beginning, I was like, okay, we don't have coffee. I'm going to fall asleep. The spirit guide is talking so slow. Like, this is so boring. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I have to just look at everyone's backs, right? Because we can't even look at each other. So I'm just staring at a bunch of people sitting on the ground and trying to meditate. So that was the beginning of day one. And as I went on, I started to look more deeply at my clothes, at like ants crawling on the floor, of my food suddenly becoming more solid and more interesting and more tasting because there weren't any other outside things of where am I going to go tomorrow? What am I going to do? Who am I going to talk to? How am I going to pay my taxes? Blah, blah, blah. Like all these
Mm.
things that you normally think about on the day to day because you're going to do it tomorrow. I didn't have to think about what clothes to wear. No one's looking at me. We're all in silence. I don't have to make phone calls. I don't have to do business. Like I don't even have to think about what meal to eat tomorrow. I don't have to cook. I don't have to do all these things. And I thought, wow, if when I erased all of those aspects, what's left of me? And, it started to make me question who am I? And what
Mhm.
am I here for? And what matters to me? And when I got out of that retreat, I went to my favorite cafe right in front of the beach. I ordered my Americano, my like eggs on toast, all this kind of stuff. And then I took one bite of this toast and I was like, I don't think I can eat eggs anymore. And so, that whole retreat was fully vegan. From then on, every meal that I ate, if it had any animal product, I just couldn't finish it. My body was just like, "Nope, we're done with this, and
Mm,
this is your last time having whatever this meal was." And I guess it was the first time that I gave myself space to listen to my body,
mhm,
and so that really changed everything. Same thing with alcohol. Had no desire to drink again ever since then. I also gave away coffee, which I used to love, but it gave me so much anxiety. I took one sip of my Americano and I was like, "Oh my god, was this supposed to be normal?" I used to wake up with espresso martinis, so, like, to remove all of that was just was just such a shocker that I was like, "Wow, I've been putting my body in this state of anxiety and thinking it's normal for the longest time," that when I finally learned what calm was, I was like, "Oh my god, I don't wanna get out of this state. Like, why would I wanna be agitated?" It was so weird that I was, like, forever in a different state of mind, and, I went through another few years just seeking that tranquility, like, seeking space and peace and figuring out what that was, and a lot of removing of things that just weren't serving me anymore. And so one of those big things was, uh going sober, going plant-based, and going celibate, and
mm,
really, like, not dating, not trying to look for the attention of others, and I realized, that I was looking at relationships wrong the whole time. I was looking at relationships like a business contract the same way I was looking at work, uh, everything else, and then, I actually came out in my sobriety, which,
mm.
was a really big deal to do, especially later in life, and everyone's kind of already decided, or at least my thought was everyone's already decided who they are, what they think that they are, and I was like, "Wow, I'm, like, confused all of a sudden. For the first time, I don't know anything about myself. I don't even know, like, did I really like bagels or did I just like bagels because everyone else liked bagels, Or
Society.
did I just like drinking alcohol because everyone else did, or that was just what we all did?" I was like, "Do I like boys because I was taught to like boys?" So everything was suddenly a new question for me.
Mhm.
And, um, I think I was really lucky during that lockdown time period that the world did slow down so that I could have space to go through that whole exercise. And, I eventually came to Oaxaca City, which is where I live now. Mezcal is served, like, on the streets all over the place. So I realized, "Okay, now I'm gonna re-enter civilization after this whole, I guess, enlightening moment in my life. What do I do now? Okay, I have to, be around people again." I ended up finding the only English-speaking AA in Oaxaca, and everyone there is probably at least above 50, 60 years old with
Mm,
decades of, sobriety, and I think I really needed to go into a space like that, where everyone was senior, everyone had lived experience to share with me, and didn't have the same experience as me. I think if I joined AA in a different community, um, it could get a little toxic, sometimes when everyone's in the same boat, whereas it was very different. Everyone was basically my mom and dad, Everyone were
yeah.
grandparents for me, so I was in a very warm state of mind there, and it was
Mhm.
basically just, like, this beautiful, loving hug that I didn't know I needed, where they just kind of let me in, accepted me exactly who I was, and sat there and made jokes with me, and shared stories, and, I went through a whole year of that program before I began engaging in new romantic relationships again, before I opened a business again, before I I did anything, because I wanted to make sure that my house was clean before I,
Mhm.
started to step in and make new relationships.
I mean, that's just beautiful. There's so much in there that so let's back it up a little bit.
Yeah.
This 10-day retreat, it's it's interesting how taking yourself out of your day-to-day just really opens up how chaotic our lives are without
Mhm.
even, like, just really thinking about it and, just it's just kinda like how you're saying, like, how it's normalized, to do all these things, and, like, I just got back from my cruise, and not saying it was a retreat, but it is a time away from your everyday life, and I don't know if I could ever give up coffee, but having, being able just to walk up and have my coffee made for me, like, that was just I didn't have to worry about these things that I, like, usually worry about and make such a big deal of, like, you know, if my schedule doesn't go exactly right, that would
Exactly.
cause me so much stress, and, like, just to go to this retreat and just kinda it puts a lot in perspective for you, that's amazing, and so I guess, I mean, I don't wanna assume or anything, and correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, did you I mean, I guess, have an issue with alcohol, or was it, like or was it just something that, 'cause, I've heard some people are just like, I just they're not heavy drinkers by any means, they're not, like, anything, but they're like, "I just don't like alcohol, I don't like it in my life." So, is that kind of the same for you, or what was that about? Or how did that go?
So, I think it was really strange because my whole family doesn't drink, none of my friends drink, but I
Mhm.
drank a lot,
Okay.
and, my colleagues would drink a lot, and I guess there was a part of me that thought I needed to drink a lot to
Mhm.
fit in with my colleagues and to continue growing, and I think it was just like the smoker's corner, like, you just had to do the thing to get yourself promoted to get to the next level. So, I
Yeah.
remember actually when I first turned 21, I moved to New York. I was like, "I'm gonna make it in New York just by turning 21. I'm just gonna go there and figure things out." And I would sneak into little parties, and I would drink whatever, house cocktails or whatever they were serving in those events. Usually, they have, little freebies, and sometimes that was, like, how I made my dinner. Like, I would just go to these free events and have all the food and drinks, and I would drink something. I hated alcohol. I would drink something, go to the bathroom, puke it out, go back, and then drink a new one.
Mm.
And that was my, like, method for a while until the alcohol stuck and I actually did get drunk, and I actually, started to like alcohol. But in the very beginning, I hated alcohol just like all my friends and family did. And I think kind of from New York and onwards when I was like, "Oh, I need to be in the scene. I need to be in these parties. I need to participate." Eventually, I started to like what I was doing, and I
Yeah.
continued drinking and I started to attach some level of success or a version of me to alcohol. And I thought, like, I needed to keep that going. I needed to know more about alcohol. And that's kind of where I got into bartending, where I'm like, I want to know all the brands. I want to know all the drinks. I want to sound cool at the bar, all of these things. So a lot of it was very aspirational. And when the pandemic hit, I realized how much I was riding on that because
Uh,
now that I'm just in front of a screen and I'm just teaching something, I'm like, now suddenly I'm the expert and I'm just making up games to make everybody talk and feel normal. I was like, wait a minute, like nobody's cool. And here I was thinking everyone was so much more cooler than me that I got to do all this stuff. And um, yeah, I remember towards the end of, the pandemic sorry, towards the beginning of the pandemic, um, I was drinking a lot. I wasn't really talking to my friends. I was just always at the bar getting wasted, blackout wasted, would never remember anything. And
mhm.
my friends were just like, you know, "None of your friends drink. None of your family drink. Like, why do you need to drink and get stupid and, like, wake up in someone else's house and, like, not know what happened yesterday and kinda, like, pick up the pieces and put them all together?" And I realized, like, how much self-hate I had that I was just adding more of that and putting the blame on alcohol and just like, "This is my life. I gotta continue it this way." Like, everyone does it, but actually not everyone does it. Like, no one in my circle actually is doing it, and here I am, like, with wilder and wilder stories. Like, I gotta keep proving my point that this is the right way, and, like, no one's joining me on this train. I'm just, like, going and going and going. I guess I just needed the wake-up call, and it was interesting that once I left my support group, once I left my friends and family, I was like, "Oh, like, I love my friends and family for being there for me the whole time, but they kinda were my pillow to, like, help me feel like, "You know what? This is okay. I can just keep going even though I'm the only one in this boat doing
Right.
it, like, whatever." And then when I was really alone, I was like, "Oh, why am I doing it now?" When finally I could listen to myself and there was no one there to kind of talk to me, that I was questioning, "Actually, what's the benefit of this? Why am I doing this? Why do I care?"
Yeah, and I almost feel like, 'cause I can relate to that of, like, everybody around you, you thought they were doing it,
Yeah.
and I almost wanted someone to tell me, like, "Hey, you're drinking too much," or, "You need to change up some things," and it wasn't until, my husband told me, and I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, I almost gave my like, it would almost, like, gave myself permission to be like, okay, now it's affecting other people, quote unquote. That's how I justified it. But yeah, like if I would go out, black out pretty much almost every time. And I would just apologize to the bartenders. Like, that's how I would justify, like, or I would like gauge how bad I got was, hey, sorry, I was a mess at the bar. And yeah, they're like, if as long as they said, oh no, you're fine. Perfect. That's all I needed to hear. And just I'll rest
You
up.
can
I'll
keep
be there next
going.
week. Yeah. It's crazy. So like, okay, so you go to this retreat, you realize alcohol like just isn't there for you, and now you said something, just kind of how you were focusing on just so much being in the present. Is that kind of like what, because you're saying that you weren't thinking about what was going on the next day, you're thinking about like the ants that were like right in front of you and the same like
Yeah.
can you like talk about that a little bit more about like how do you like carry that now into your life of like everyday life now?
I mean, living in Oaxaca, it's not like anywhere else in Mexico.
Mhm.
It's a very small town. It's pretty rural where I live, because that's where the agave grows and that's where we do a lot of that production. So there's
Mhm.
not a lot of essentials or conveniences that we're used to. Like we can't Uber, we can't, you know, get Amazon very easily, so,
No DoorDash.
a lot yeah, no DoorDash, none of that kinda stuff, right? So, things are a little bit more complicated. You have to go and seek things out, so there's always something wrong. Like, I have a very, very old car that always breaks down randomly on the street, you know?
Mm.
The amount of times I get flat tires because the roads are just so bad that usually there's nails that get caught in your tires and, like, you just are stuck on the road. And then that just breaks your whole day. You're just waiting there for, you can't call AAA, right? We don't have that here. So you have to wait for a friendly person to stop by and help you. You have to call someone to come over there. Like there's a lot of community in that aspect because these things don't exist. So
Right.
um I can't get disappointed that something didn't work out because literally something doesn't work out every single minute. Um,
Mhm.
and once you get accustomed to that, it's actually weird when I go to the US and I'm like, "Oh, wow, everything's working perfectly fine." Everything goes on time. And so it's kind of like, "Whoa, I'm expecting it to delay." And that's why I have all of these, additional ways around things. And I'm a lot just less affected when something
Yeah.
doesn't go. I'm like, really? You're just upset that the subway came, 2 minutes late? Like, what if it didn't never showed up? That'd be normal to me. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to notice that. And also just like to realize how much I was worried about things that I can't control. So why bother
Yeah,
spending
yeah.
all my time worrying about it when there's other things that I could focus on?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was, like, thinking about while you're talking about that, is just, like, it really puts into perspective of, like, I just know if I was still drinking and I got a flat tire, I would, like, flip shit. Like,
Yep.
I would just, like and just, those things of, like, saying, like, if it does happen all the time, it really does let you know, like, proof that you can't control everything. And are you really gonna let it ruin your entire day, this one little instance, when you have a whole day to go through and, like, be productive? And if it's more common, like you're saying, it happens every day, it's like, "Oh, okay. Well, alright, let's just keep going because that's all we can do, really, in those situations." So, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because I think that's hilarious. 2 minutes Subway's 2 minutes late.
But it does upset you because you're like, well, I was hoping that I had this extra time so I can walk over there and pick up my coffee and then do this and whatever. And you had that extra 2 minutes and you're like, did you really think you were going to get that in 2 minutes?
Yeah.
You really weren't, but you just wanted the 2 minutes because it had to go on schedule. And you're just like, whatever, however you want to add
Yeah.
that up. The math isn't mathing.
I I have learned, because I would always tell people, like, I love to be on time. Like, if people said we're gonna be at the bar at 5:30, I am walking in at 5:25 because I love to be punctual. I don't love to be punctual, I just wanted to drink. Like, that was the thing, like, I wanted to be there because I wanted to drink. And now I'm still I still want to be there on time or whatever, but it's not a big deal if we are running a bit late or if, traffic or whatever. Um, so it is interesting how much like alcohol has took over like my being. And I do like a routine. I do love a routine. I feel like that's how it gets me through the day, but it's not like kind, if that makes sense. It's
You know,
like
yeah,
go ahead.
I think it's really interesting because you're making me think about the time that I stopped drinking, which was about 2 years of me just walking around through Mexico, figuring out what to do with my life and not drinking versus truly living sober. And I differentiate
Mm,
those two because
yeah.
not drinking was really me white knuckling it and just like removing myself from bad spaces. And so
Mhm.
removing myself from drinking, from animal products, from bad relationships, going celibate, all these things, like the intention to do so was great, but continuing to do so, I don't really know if that was the right thing. Like, why was I continuing to do so? Just because the original idea was correct? Yes, but then how I was going about it was like super militant, like you
Mhm.
said, everything is on a timer. Like if I didn't go to my yoga class at whatever time in the morning because I woke up late, I would like the whole world would go on fire, like just because of something happening, or like my yoga teacher went sick and didn't show up to class, like that would just ruin my whole day. Where like,
Yeah.
of course, the yoga teacher can be sick one day, but here I am, like my whole life is ruined because I was so tied up to that structure when I
Mhm.
wasn't drinking. So anything would like my whole life would shatter if something didn't work out.
Yeah.
That's something I couldn't control. But moving on to living sober, that's when I found a community of people that also don't drink, that are also recovering. So there's a
Yeah.
difference between all my friends and family that never drank to begin with, never had a problem with alcohol, and never like continued in recovery afterwards. It's a whole different type of person than someone who just like doesn't drink, isn't interested at all to begin with.
Right.
And I realized I was like, oh, I was missing this point of understanding without words, just you get it, and you didn't have to over
So
explain.
true.
And I remember I would I'd be collecting tattoos in all the places that I was going to in Mexico and visiting and wondering if I would, continue living there or whatever. And I was just collecting all these tattoos. And a lot of these tattoos I didn't like because I just mistranslated it in Spanish and it didn't come out right or whatever happened and just wasn't the right spot I wanted or anything. And I was just too afraid to speak back until it was too late,
Yeah.
And this also showed up in relationships. Like I did not want to be with these people. And then I just like let it happen because I thought it would be easier to just give them what they wanted than to like start an argument or whatever. And so I would say this to a lot of my friends, and they were just like, you can say no at any time in a relationship and getting a tattoo. Like all of these things are permanent to you. And you seem to like just be letting that happen as if it's okay. And I was like, it's better than, you know, causing it because I entered the situation. I walked into the tattoo room. I don't know. Apparently, it's my fault. And I would just like throw the blame at myself. And a lot of my friends were just like, "Okay, that's one thing. Like, I guess you got yourself into the situation, but like." The things that come out of that situation are not your fault, like you might have entered the room, but that doesn't mean like everything that happens in the room is your fault. And
Right.
so I needed to eventually find my AA group here in Oaxaca to show me that it's not it's not your fault that you wanted to enter the room. You thought it was a cool thing to do. It excited you. Maybe you had great intentions to enter the room, and then yeah, things fell apart in the room with other
Right.
people that you can't control, with other things and situations. So it was just this like full understanding, and like people just understood the tattoo thing. Like so many people that I've met in recovery are just like, oh yeah, like my first year, a million tattoos for no reason at all. And just the fact that they got it and understood it, and that was somebody's version of it. Some other people did other things, but
Yeah.
the tattoo collection was definitely quite common in the rooms. And it made me realize like, wow, I'm not alone in this. I'm not the crazy person that my friends and family make me out to be, you know?
Right.
And
Yeah.
that changed it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's once you find I can't express how how important it is to find a community that like just find your community, and that's why I tell everybody a psychiatrist or therapist, AA, online group. There's so many different areas. If one doesn't work for you, try something else. Do something else because you never know what's going to fit. You never know what's going to work. And yes, I totally when I went into my group, I didn't know. I do online peer support and I didn't know what the hell it was. It was on Zoom. I go in and I'm just looking at all these people and I don't I don't remember if I turned my camera on right away. I think I did. I blacked out during that time too, but just from being nervous, not alcohol.
Mhm.
But the first couple of shares, I just related so much to what they said, and I was just like, I always thought I was the only one. Like, I thought I invented, like,
Exactly.
moderation and trying to mix drinks of water and soda here before I have another drink, and, like, to hear all these stories, I was like like, mind blown. So but yeah, no, you're totally I always said I was never gonna get tattoos on my arms, just on my legs or my right leg, and, like, I got my first year, I was like, "Yep, that's what you're gonna get." But I do appreciate this one, I spent a lot of time on it. But, yeah, it is different, and I like the fact that you pointed that out between being sober and in recovery. I think that's very important because like, it's I've seen it happen where people who just don't drink are the white knuckle, like you said, and I think it's so important to realize that because I don't know if it's ego or what, but we think we can do it by ourselves. It's like, no, it's so much easier when we have a community. So, yeah, thank you for saying that and like sharing that, pointing that out. So vegan. Are we still vegan or like how does that help, I guess, regulate? Like, how do you find that helping? Does that help your sobriety or support your sobriety, or is it just more about the mental and physical for you?
So I originally stopped drinking and I went vegan both at the same time because my body was saying no to it.
Mhm.
And I realized how good I felt. I realized, wow, I really like how my body is feeling. I feel a lot lighter. I feel a lot healthier. And as I went on my journey on both ends, I obviously got more involved in communities. I got to understand more political reasons why, more any other reason why besides just a personal decision. And one thing, it made me question my relationship with food. And why do I, exactly the same way I was raised, eat everything off the plate because there's starving kids out there that wouldn't, would love the
Right there
food that
with
you
you.
have, and here you are not eating it, right? So I was just like, would never question food, never question how it was done. I always considered myself like not a kitchen person, not a cook. I would just be grateful for anybody that would cook whatever's on the food. And again, here I am eating just like random scraps, food probably that isn't great, but just having to show this eternal gratitude to whoever made the food. And and then I realized how many times I would not send food back that was burnt, that was undercooked, any of these things because, out of politeness, I just didn't wanna cause problems. And, in the same way as being sober and going into a bar confidently and saying, "You know what, thank you, but I'm not gonna, participate in this round." And the people that are like, "Come on, just get one drink, blah, blah, blah," dealing with all of that. The same way with being a vegan, it was just like, "Really, you're not gonna share the app with us?" And it's like, "No, really, I'm not, but I can order this other app that everyone can have." So it's funny how like you can have my food and I can't have yours, and yet you're complaining about that part. So, the same thing with
Right.
drinks. Like you can have my drink, I just can't have yours. And it's just like, where are you losing the part of the inclusivity? It's like here I am giving you things that you can have and
Right.
actively sharing that with you and participating with you and not judging you on whatever you want to eat or drink. And yet somehow all of that judgment is being sent on me. So um, I think I needed to see the political reasons why, the health reasons why, blah, 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 all of this stuff about why people are vegan, to take away the stigma of the personal aspect of choosing not to drink alcohol. because yes,
Yeah.
that's a personal decision and, can have allergies, they can have political reasons, they can be part of social impact, any of that kind of stuff. And so seeing it come from a multitude of different angles for the same thing. Basically, you're deciding on you. You're deciding on what goes in your body. You're deciding on your lifestyle
100%.
and how you want to wake up tomorrow. So that could be a food related thing, drink related thing, anything. And I guess the third one that I'd love to put out is the sex part, right? It's like being celibate on top of all of those things. It was just like, wow, I'm super no fun. But it was kind of like, yeah, I'm also going to choose to like not have sex because apparently I realized I was just having sex with anyone because they wanted to. And like again, the same way because I'm eating this food because you wanted to, and I'm having this drink because you wanted to, and none of them were my choice. So I think
Right.
as a theme, those three parts had to happen at the same time for me to see them in all different methods.
Right. And I like the fact that you kind of included that as well of, I mean, sorry, mom. Um, but when I was drinking, I was kind of slutty. I
Right.
w It happens, right? And uh but to go and do like I like how you said it's almost like you chose you over everything else. And I love that fact of because I'm getting there too. Like it's like I choose what I want to put into my body. I choose, these things. And it's like because yeah, we were people pleasers. We just wanted people to like us or whatever for whatever reason. And it was just like, yes, I'll I'll do it. Um but yeah, like once you like start and I like the fact that I mean, it's pretty badass that you put like some hard boundaries down of, no alcohol, no sex, no, going vegan. Like that's pretty badass. And so like how did this I mean, I'm just fascinated by this. Because it just shows like how often people don't put themselves first. We get and like you said earlier, whether it be society or, just everybody loves bagels, so you should love bagels. But, it's simple as that, but it's so as complex of I'm hurting my body, I'm not happy because I'm trying to please other people. It just like that blows my mind. So the fact that you're like, I'm putting a stop to it all. You can't tell me anything. I'm doing my own thing. That is pretty awesome. So, and I know you told me before, how long have you been sober now? Is it 4 years?
4 years. Yeah.
4 years? Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And so are you still part of your AA community or
Yeah.
what
I'm
do you
still
do
part of it
now?
here.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Okay, awesome. 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 And so now we have you created this whole new business. So entrepreneurial spirit, of course, you started with the online kits and everything. Now you're doing this. So tell me a little bit about Tomo no Tomo.
Yeah. So Tomo no Tomo actually stands for I drink, I don't drink in Spanish. And in the beginning, I'd always just be like, gracias, pero no tomo, which means thank you, but I don't
Mhm.
drink. And I just kept saying no tomo, no tomo, no tomo, like all the time. And so it was a running workshop name for me as I was in the R&D process of this product to call it no tomo. And then I was just like, you know what? I don't really want to call it no something because I don't want to begin with a negative. I don't want to make it seem like you're losing out or something. So it was kind of like, when you have the little flowers and you're like, he loves me not, he loves me, he loves me not. So like that was the kind of idea of Tomo, no Tomo, Tomo, no Tomo. So it was just like I drink, I don't drink, and kind of a play on that. And
Mhm.
accidentally just ended up becoming more of a signal for inclusivity, that I do drink, but I don't drink alcohol, but I do drink.
Mhm.
So why can't I, participate with this spirit? And
Yeah.
and the idea was, I mean, people love mezcal here in Oaxaca. It's a huge tradition. It's a huge cultural aspect. Everyone has a mezcal brand or knows somebody that is making their own mezcal brand. And so, like, the laundromat will have their mezcal brand, the taxi driver will have their mezcal brand, and it's just so rude to refuse it.
Yeah.
Like it's their blood, sweat, and tears put into that, or centuries of traditions that are put in there. And so it's like, well, I want to respect my new boundary that I'm setting here of not drinking alcohol, but I do want to participate in the ritual. I want to bring a bottle, I want something that other people can also have, but something that I can
Mhm.
have. And so that was that was just the true beat of the whole reason of like, okay, I want to continue living in Oaxaca, but I want to continue to be sober. I need something to make the day pass, in a healthy way. And
Yeah.
I really needed to be in that position where I moved away from just not drinking to, living sober, actively existing as that person, not, the angry non-drinking person that's just like mad at the world and like having all of these hardcore boundaries. Yeah, I was really militant about that, but I was really focused on not hurting myself more than I've already hurt myself. But once I started to live sober, this was when I got to heal those parts that were already
Right.
hurt, and uh actually living my life, going through the actions of what that would look like, going to parties, going to birthdays, going to celebrations, and then not feeling awkward and, you know, being confident about not drinking, being happy about that, not just being like, "Oh, I'm not drinking, please don't ask me. Why not?" Because then I have to go through this whole sad story about it. And
Oh, yeah.
I
We've all been
remember
there.
that, right? And I remember when I first started dating my fiance, it was obviously holiday time. So it was Christmas, New Year's, and people were coming over and they were drinking. And I was just like, oh my God, now there's going to be booze in my house. Like, I don't know how to deal with this. I was okay with the booze outside of my house. I could go home. I can't escape here. Everything was just a disaster. And, I we went to bed and my partner was like, "Why don't you share your sober story?" Or like, "Why don't you share why you don't drink?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Well, I know why you don't drink, but I think that's really inspiring and that's kind of the reason why I'm with you. Why don't you share that?" Because I don't think you need to like convince people to not drink. I don't think that's like what you're doing at all. You're not patronizing them, but your story still deserves to be told, especially if people want to ask you why instead of just being like, I just don't drink, and like being really shut off about it. And I didn't realize that that was what I was doing. I was shutting people out. I wasn't letting
Wow.
them in. And because I was just like, oh, instantly they're going to be like, why not take a shot? Why not just one? And I was instantly deciding how they were going to react before they were going to react. And then I was like, wait a minute. How dare I think that they're going to judge me when I've already judged them? I've already decided what they're going to say next.
Right.
So yeah, that really kind of changed my thought process, and I was like, "What if I just lived as if everyone was gonna support me?" What if I just completely changed that,
It's such a concept.
right? And you're like, "What if people just wanted to be happy for you?" And then I just continued doing that, and the way that that shifted, I had, hardcore mezcal producers suddenly want to come over and like cook vegan food with me and like make non-alcoholic cocktails suddenly, and it's just like, well, your life just seems so great. You seem so happy. And I'm like, I actually am happy at this point, and like you
Mhm.
can't hide happy. Um
Yeah.
I mean, you also can't hide unhappy. Here you are trying to do whatever you can to show that. Um and I think that's really the change when I was like, wow, I'm just by living, that's already the example. I don't have to do more than that. But sometimes just the living part is hard enough.
Yeah. No, that is awesome. Yeah, I like that, and, I always say when I go, because I still like going to the bars, the gay community, like, that's our safe space, right, in a lot of places, and so I wanted to make sure that I could be able to go to these places because otherwise, I didn't know where else to go because I wasn't part of an AA program. I didn't really know any other sober people. So I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to be in this environment, then I want to make sure that I'm okay. And I think being a bartender, it kind of made it a little easier because I never drank when I bartended. I tried it out and it ended horribly. So it was like, don't ever mess with my money. Like when it comes to making money, like I was like, I'm not gonna be drunk. Like, no. So I think that's helped me and to be able to be in that kind of environment and, be social. But yeah, like I dreaded having to answer those questions. So it's just like, if I didn't know you, like I gave you levels. Like if you were an acquaintance, I would give you this joking answer and just
Yeah.
pass it off and be like, "No, I just don't drink anymore." And then, because I just learned, A, once I have something in my hand to drink, nobody cares. They don't
Exactly.
care what is in it if it's at the bar, like if it's in a scene, like a certain area, right? And that just blew my mind because I thought if I have, because I drank vodka soda with lemon, like, so when I just took out the vodka, I just had the club soda with lemon and no one said anything. Because they all think that it's a regular drink. But like, you know, to your point, if I'm going somewhere where, it is a little bit more alcohol focused, then it's just like, oh, I have to come up with these responses of, like, so I just say, yeah, me and alcohol broke up. It kicked my ass and I'm just tired of being beaten from alcohol. So, but it is true about how I say, Mexicans love their tequila because my husband, his family lives in Mexicali, and we went down for a birthday, and it was his mom's 60th birthday, I believe. Um, And you could have sworn that the centerpieces were all just tequila bottles, because every table
Yeah.
had some form of tequila, and as the night went on, the bigger the tequila bottles got. I'm
Exactly.
like, "Okay, so y'all were not playing, y'all love y'all's tequila." So, if you can, just give me a quick short explanation of kind of like what is your product? Like, what is the agave spirit itself?
Yeah. So Tomo no Tomo is the first and only alcohol-free distillery in all of Mexico. So normally there's distilleries that have de-alkalized products to make it a non-alcoholic product, which is great for beers and wines, which don't have a lot of alcohol to start with. So the taste is pretty
Mm,
much the same as it was before. And the process is very similar to like coffee beans, where you want to like decaf, right? So you go through another process to take it out. Um, but if alcohol is like 40% of that spirit and you're going to dealkalize it, like that's 40%, like basically half of the spirit. And then all you're left with is water, you know, you can't
yeah,
go through that same process. So the other process that a lot of brands do is usually something that's made in a flavor house or like a laboratory. And it's a bunch of essences and flavors and hydrolytes to mimic the flavor of gin, vodka, tequila, whatever it is, right? And I thought, well, okay, let's look at all of these other brands. And most of the brands of non-alcoholic tequilas and mezcals never actually were made with agave, which like is an atrocity, right? Because like all tequilas and mezcals need to be made with agave and need to be made in Mexico, right? Those are like the two founding rules before you get to everything else. And
yeah,
so I thought, okay, that's easy. Let me just make something in Mexico and make something of real agave. Harder than it thought, like, easier said than done
yeah,
because it
yeah,
took about, like, 2 years to formulate a process where I could ferment the agave so that it's alcohol-free from the beginning. Um, and so at the point of distillation, it's already alcohol-free, and then we go through distillation just the same way as a normal spirit is done. My machine is kind of like a Frankenstein of a mezcal and a gin because we need a lot of herbs and spices to, give it that body, because otherwise, yeah, you're just making agave water, right? So you kinda need those, like, botanicals to put that through, and,
yeah,
a gin basket kind of gives you that variety. So, had to make my own still. I had to, ferment my own agave, learn how to do all of that, and choose an agave. So agave is kind of like apples. There's, like, a million varieties of apples, but we only know, like, red delicious and green apple, like, we know, like, the core types of apples, but there's, like, a million other apples. Just like agave, so tobala is actually harvested only in Oaxaca, and it has a lot less sugar. So less sugar means less alcohol. So it makes a very, very expensive mezcal because it needs a lot of agave because there's not a lot of sugar for it to eventually ferment and turn into alcohol. On the
right,
flip side, I don't need so much because I don't want it to turn into alcohol.
right.
Yeah, so, there's actually a lot more agave types I'm still researching for more that are better suited for non-alcoholic distillation. So it's kind of just,
That's
like,
awesome.
changing that perspective.
Yeah, so well, I mean, I tried, like, right when I first started, I got, like, it was like a green apple vodka or NA vodka or whatever. And yeah, it tasted like it was watered down, like a drink left overnight.
Exactly, yeah.
And I just like drank. I was like, oh, this is not good. But no, I like that, so I'm assuming there's more flavor to it than just, and that's where the gin part of it and everything comes in. That is awesome. And so you built this all yourself, or like how did how did
Yeah,
you
so
do that?
I I ba I basically took all of my money from my Canadian business, from the
Uh-huh.
cocktail kits, and put it all into this product. I found a food scientist to work with me.
Okay.
But then I had to build the still. I had to teach myself how to distill. I had to find suppliers for agave, and I think that was the biggest thing that I had to make myself fluent in Spanish, find a community, build those relationships, because I couldn't rely on anybody else. There aren't like um, third party food packers that already know how to make this product. Like it's a brand new product.
Yeah,
So that was really the challenge.
that is awesome. And people can find you. So is it on Instagram and everything? I'm gonna link you. And I know we talked. One of the things we talked about is potentially doing a retreat down there because you do bar crawls.
I do, yeah.
So
So I
tell
lead,
me more about that. I mean, I
yeah,
love a good bar crawl, and especially if it's a themed bar crawl. The
yeah,
gays love a
so
theme.
yeah, we've been leading sober bar crawls, and every month it's been increasing, and I think it's really interesting because as we were talking about people that go to these bars, right, like, they don't question you if you have a drink in your hand, they don't question what it is, what alcohol it is, any of that kind of stuff. You're just like overthinking it. And now that there's sober bar crawls, we leave the normal bar open, but we do have a dedicated menu made from Tomo no Tomo cocktails. So um, everyone can choose a drink,
Yeah.
and the majority of people actually aren't sober. They just want to have a fun night out, a wholesome night out with people that aren't going to pressure them to drink too much. But if they still want to drink, they can still have a drink, and no one's going to question them about it. So it's
Right.
kind of just like I think a lot of what you're doing of creating safe spaces, not only for queer folk, but for people that just don't want to be pressured to do something that they might not want to do.
Mhm.
Knowing how they are, knowing how they might normally get pressured, to be like, actually, like, let me find a space that I'm just more around people that are my own people,
Right.
yeah, just make me feel okay.
Yeah, no, I like that, and it's kind of funny to see, and I've noticed this at a lot of places that people will have, 1 or 2 drinks when they get somewhere, but then you see them switching over to, like, a non-alcoholic drink. I asked one of our bartenders at one of my favorite bars if they could bring in the athletic brewing, and they brought it in, and I went up there one time and they were like, hey, we're actually sold out. I said no, because that's my drink. But then on the flip side, I'm like,
Right?
oh well, people are not drinking, they're drinking these too. So I really do like the fact. And then the more you start to see these people, again, is it really the alcohol that they're searching for, or is it something more, like you're saying, like the community aspect of it? And so I always get a little happy, like when I see people going and they get like the non-alcoholic six pack of something, and it's a family, a younger family or whatever it is. I'm just thinking it was like these young married couple, and they had like a little toddler running around, and he just takes this deep breath of like, oh man, it's gonna be a long day. But then he grabs this athletic brew thing, and it was like, oh, okay, that's pretty awesome. So yeah, I just like how this is kind of like going into a moment, like you don't have to drink, and you could still enjoy this company and still good beverages, and I get like, quote unquote, be a part of society. like,
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
know, in one of the other podcasts, my guest was like, being sober is not a prison sentence. You can go and enjoy life. So
Yeah,
that's
I think
awesome.
Um, that's another reason why I've been leading sober tours. Like we have sober agave tours, we have the sober bar crawls, because Oaxaca is a very touristic space, and almost always any tour that you go to involves stopping at a mezcal shop, obviously to promote you buying bottles and taking them home and whatever. They
Yeah.
probably have, a partnership going on with that. But a lot of people that are just drinking less are looking to go on these excursions, to go on these road trips, but without having to stop by at the mezcal shop and buy drinks and, begin with a shot of mezcal at like 9 o'clock in the morning on their way to, the ancient ruins. And so that's been something that we've been trying to promote more. And it's great to see people of all ages. We get retired folks coming in that used to love mezcal, but just like can't stomach it anymore, to
Hmm.
young groups like with a kid or a dog, just wanting a wholesome day out, enjoying the scenery and seeing something new and getting a local tour, being able to give back to the community in that way.
Yeah. No, I like, I want to go. Um, but yeah, no. So, well, Amanda, thank you so much for coming on the show and just I think this was a really great episode. I love this conversation with everything that you're doing and, just kind of all the little mic drops you had in here of like showing up for yourself. And there's a difference between being sober and in recovery and putting down those hard, boundaries and especially, but still creating a life that like fits you for you. And so thank you so much. And I always ask, uh, if anybody ever comes up to you and asks, "Hey, I want to give up drinking," or, whatever the case is, "I want to get sober." What advice would you tell them?
um, I'd ask them, why are they doing it? Is it for you, or is it for something else, or did someone tell you
Mhm.
that? And also just go at your own pace. Like you don't have to announce it to the world like I'm not drinking tomorrow. Just go about yourself in your own way. And whatever that looks like to you. It doesn't have to follow a certain structure.
Yeah. I think people get so caught up on like they have to go to like AA or they have to go to a therapist. Like they have to do something. And it's like, yeah, you have to do something, but if it doesn't feel right for you, don't do it. Like, but and that's, I think I said that at the very beginning. Like, there's so many different ways. Try it out, see what works. But yeah, and make sure you're doing it for you. So yeah, love that answer. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, you can find me online at tomonotomo.com, or you can follow me on Instagram at tomonotomoagave.
Awesome. And of course, we're going to plug everything down below. Um, Again, Amanda, thank you so much for being here. Um, is there anything else? I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I feel like we covered a lot.
I mean, yeah, if anyone wants to come to Oaxaca, our distillery is open and available for visits. So anytime you guys want, just send me a DM and we can sort that out. And any other sober tours that you want to do around the city.
Yeah, I'm really hoping we're gonna stay in touch because I definitely want to hopefully get something down there. I think that'd be just amazing to go down there. Um, but yeah, yeah, everybody go to Oaxaca, go check her out. Um, but thank you so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it. And thank you everybody for listening. Make sure to follow Amanda, Tomo no Tomo, follow me online, leave a review, all the good stuff. It really does help us all out. But most importantly, make sure to take care of yourselves and we will catch you on the next episode. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. If you connected with this episode, feel free to comment and leave us a review. You can find me on Instagram at OutandAboutAF. Take care of yourself, and we'll catch you on the next episode.